Yeah, I want to talk today about the jobs of your cards. I have been playing UniVersus, or the My Hero card game, for a very, 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 very long time, and I've had quite a bit of success. I've topped a lot of nationals and world events. I've won a PTC or like it's like a regional. I'm in the community a ton, and so I kind of know what I've got going on. And we've had a brand new flux of players into the game, and so I want to give some lessons, some Tam Talks about how I view the game. Yeah. And so the goal of this is to understand how I view my cards while I'm deck building, and to get you to see your cards on more than just the surface level. A lot of times, whenever new people jump into a card game, they read the card and they don't know how to evaluate it. Like even like right now, I personally can't go look at a Magic the Gathering card and be like, oh, I understand the reason that this card is good or this card is bad. Like, I'll read a card and be like, look at my Magic veteran friends and like, yo, this card is sweet. I can't believe it does all these things. And they're like, yeah, but it's overcosted and you got to jump through these hoops. And I'm like, well, I don't see any of the hoops on this card. Like, yeah, it's worth 2 cents. Who cares? And so my goal of this video is to help you understand what is going on in my head as I am building. I do want to put a disclaimer. My word is not law. It is not... It's not law. It's not a thing that absolutely is taken for fact. The goal of this is to expand your mind and to get you thinking. The most important thing about this is for you to think and not just do what I do, right? And most importantly, for you to like not just be brain dead. Like, I want to teach these things, and the best way to teach is for you to like open and expand your mind too. And so, if you have anything that you disagree with, let me know down in the comments down below of this YouTube video. It would be important for you. And anybody in chat, I'm live on Twitch right now. If you guys want to butt in and have a conversation with me, this is, I don't want this to be a lecture at you. I want this to be like a conversation with you. If you have any questions in the moment, you have the benefit of being live with me right now. So please ask away. I would like that very much. So jumping into it, whenever I build decks, I give each one of my cards 4 distinct jobs, right? And the 4 jobs that I give my cards there are aggressive cards, defensive cards, flow cards, and disruption cards. And we're going to talk about each of these, and I put them into each 4 piles as we're doing stuff. And so I want to start off with aggressive cards and what aggressive cards mean and what I mean by that. Aggressive cards, there are tons of examples for all of these slots, but I just put in like 3 or 4, depending on what it was. So aggressive cards deal burn damage. You can think of like burst speed. That's just an aggressive card. Aggressive cards end the game fast. Like, I want to finish the game. I want to get my opponent's health to 0. That's the point of an aggressive card. So dealing burn damage, pumping stats. These cards demand respect, right? Have you ever seen a card slammed down on the table and you laugh at it because you know that card's not going to be like relevant in killing you? Not an aggressive card. Have you ever seen a card slam down on the table and you go, I might be dead this turn? There's your aggressive card. And it is a card that forces a line of play, right? It makes my opponent interact with that card. Because if you just let your opponent play all of their super cool aggressive cards, you'll lose. And so it is a card that you put in your deck to scare and demand respect. The examples I have of aggressive cards are Gift from Mom, Late Riser, Texas Smash. Gift from Mom, discard momentum, your punch attack gets 3 damage. Discard momentum for plus 3 damage is like fantastic. Here, I'm going to turn my cam off real fast. Boop. Discard a momentum for plus 3 damage is a ton. That's basically half of an attack spliced onto one of your other moves. Late Riser, if you've played a combo ability this turn, it gets plus 1 damage, but it also has that responsive, if it's discarded, plus 1 speed. And then Texas Smash, combo... This attack gets 4 damage, and discard a card, your next attack gets 4 damage as well. And so there are, all of these you can see are just like big stat pumping, big damage cards. When these cards hit the table, you've got more damage coming at you, and so you're more likely to just lose the game when you're being facing. And you want to fill your deck with these cards so that you can, win the game. Up next, we've got defensive cards. Defensive cards lower stats on your opponent or your rival's attacks. They keep you alive, right? They force overextending, and they gaining life. So the big thing about defensive cards is they are the opposite of aggressive cards, where aggressive cards end the game and help you win. And defensive cards extend the game and keep you alive so that you don't lose. So it's the difference between trying to win versus not trying to lose. There are one of the easiest ways to see yourself as a new player is by filling your deck with one of these two camps and being like all out aggressive or all out defensive. And so we will talk at the end about ratios and what to do with this information. But looking at your cards, lowering stats, keeping you alive, forcing overextending, gaining life. I want to talk about that third one, forcing overextending. So the big thing about defensive cards is the good ones sit on the board and just kind of help you keep your life alive. The big example, let's see, it's on the screen. It's not. Things like You're So Obvious. You're So Obvious is one of the best defensive cards in the game because it forces my opponent to play one extra attack, right? I pump this thing up to lethal, I play You're So Obvious, and then you have to put it back down, which is where forcing that overextending, they didn't want to play that last attack, right? They didn't want to play that last one to try and push for the game. You could block it, so on and so forth. These are cards to help you backswing, and that's like the point of defensive cards, is this game, the My Hero card game, there's a lot of backswinging that can happen. Like a ton of backswinging that can happen. And defensive cards are going to be the cards that allow you to do that. So the defensive cards that I picked as my examples are Wall Cling. I'll turn my camera back off. Boop. Wall Cling, Precise Control, Recovery Girl's Kiss. These are all just defensive cards, right? Flip if it's blocked. It deals no damage. Obviously, it stops your opponent from getting chip damage in or throw damage. Precise Control, just enhance, add this card to your hand. The whole point of this is to just be able to pick up a 3 mid block whenever you need it to. And then Recovery Girl's Kiss, flip, gain 1 health. If you have any sort of way, like Kirishima with this card under good gets to like play this card every 2 turn cycles, right? I'll play an attack, I'll flip Recovery Girl's Kiss, I'll pick it back up, I'll play it back down. There's like a lot of interesting interactions that Recovery Girl's Kiss. Kirishima can push his life from 29 up to upwards of like 30, 40 with that, plus his damage reduction. Up next, the next category we have is flow cards. Flow cards are all about pushing your game plan forwards, being able to make sure that you can play out the lines that you want to play. These are good for drawing cards, making cards easier to play, like clearing your card pool, readying cards, building cards, pluses to your check, like Cool Student, and things that give you like snap momentum. Basically, the way that you can think of flow cards is these are the cards that help your game plan, but don't actually kill my opponent. Drawing +1 card does not actually make the game does not actually win you the game, right? One of the big things about this game as opposed to other games is cards in hand doesn't really matter. Like drawing cards is good. Don't get it twisted. But like if I can draw 5 cards in a turn, but I don't really have a way to play them all out, you are probably just going to draw them at the beginning of your turn anyways, right? Like you were just going to draw those cards. Like who cares if you can't play them out? And so flow cards are the ones that are going to help you play the cards so that you can then play your aggressive cards or play your defensive cards in order to push the damage through. And so having the distinction between aggressive cards and flow cards is really, really important. And like being able to categorize them properly. And so the examples I have for flow cards are Wealthy Aspirations, response flip after a card is added to momentum, add the top card to your deck to your momentum. It's just like snap momentum, nice and quick. Agitation after your attack is blocked, draw a card. Just says draw 1 card. And then enhance flip, your next punch attack gets -1 difficulty. And so all of these cards are either grabbing things off the top of your deck, they are letting you play more cards out of your hand like Good Impressions, or they're becoming like 2-for-1s, like with Wealthy Aspiration, being able to steal that momentum off the top. And so cards like this are how your aggressive decks get to feel unfair, right? Because like just putting down like a big wall of stats, It doesn't actually get you there versus the really good top tier players, and even versus some really good top tier decks, right? Like, if you keep losing to just an aggressive deck, play Nomu, and Nomu will no longer, or that aggressive deck will no longer be an issue to you, because like, just commit a foundation for, just deal 6 damage. But as somebody who has played Midoriya into Nomu, I can tell you that it's not my aggressive cards that let me win the game. It's my flow cards that let me keep my tempo and keep my advantage on the game, in order to that lets me be able to fight that really strong character when he's good against my deck. Moving on. Our last categories, we've had aggro, defense, flow. We now have disruption. Disruption cards are all about stopping my rival from playing cards, and so it's the literally opposite of flow, right? Flow is about me playing or drawing cards and like flowing through the game as well as I can. Disruption cards are about putting up that dam, right? Stopping my rival from playing cards, reducing my rival's resources, momentum hate, flipping, destroying my rival's foundations, discarding my opponent's cards, or forcing my rival to make bad plays or no plays at all. And that's the real one. So you want to talk about almost going back to like defensive play of like forcing my opponent to overextend. Imagine feeling like you have to overextend, but knowing that there's like an onboard trick that says that you don't get to, if you overextend, I'll punish you twice as hard because of these disruption cards. This is, I believe, inside the My Hero set, is the smallest represented category. And so whenever you are going through and you are looking at your main deck, you are going to see that these don't have. This will be probably your smallest represented piles, just because there's not a ton of stopping my opponent from doing a thing, which is why all of these aggressive decks are doing so well, right? That's why your Frappies, your Kirishima's an aggressive deck, don't get it twisted. Your Midoriyas, your Ochakos, your Bakugos, these characters are doing really well. Your Nomus are doing great because they're very, very aggressive decks, and there's not a lot of stopping them from doing that. There's a lot of selective disruption that exists in the game, and we'll talk about it and have a reference point for the rest of forever. But yeah. Disruption is where I personally feel like the game is lacking. Personally, things like Breaker, Breaker. So if we go all the way back to our defensive cards, if you look at Precise Control, this card has Breaker 1 on it, and so Breaker is like, it's just a good disruption piece. My examples are Fulfilled My Duty, Enhance Destroy in this enhanced step. What's their plan? Flip. There's 4 disruption abilities on that card. We both discard a momentum. The next attack loses EX. It loses powerful, loses stun. Or Nightwatch's response, remove 1 action after rival plays a non-character enhance. Cancel it. And so these are just basically your say no cards, right? No to this enhanced step, no to your momentum, which that's what the main reason to play what's their plan, and then no to your enhance. And so these disruption cards are a way for your opponent to play a bit of chess with you. I always say that whenever you play card games, every card game is a combination of chess and poker, right? You've got chess, which are any of the onboard pieces that exist, your permanents that are existing on the board, and then you've got poker, which is the hidden information in the hand, in the deck, so on and so forth. And you are trying to both simultaneously play poker and chess. These disruption pieces are really good examples of my opponent having to play chess with you. And so there's all four jobs of our cards: aggro, defense, flow, disruption. And so I hear what you're saying. There are some cards that have multiple jobs, and I completely agree with you. The reason that these cards are so good, like every card, we can even go back and look, I already used some examples, is these cards don't have one job inside of your deck. And so when you take and you look at Evil Gaze, it gets +2 speed or -2 speed. If it's blocked, destroy a rival foundation, remove this card from the game. So let's talk about all the jobs that this card has. So it's an aggressive card because it gives +2 speed, and that's how we win the game. It's a defensive card because it gives -2 speed, so that I'm allowed to block it. It says if this attack is blocked, right, which is forcing my opponent to respect a line, and so it is a... it could possibly be considered like a flow card if you don't want this attack blocked, depending on what Evil Gaze is pumping. They destroy. I pick and destroy one of their foundations. So this is flow to get rid of one of their disruptive pieces, disruption to get rid of one of their flow pieces, disruption to get rid of one of their aggro or defensive pieces in order for me to play the game. Like this card does tons of things, and we haven't even looked at the fact that it's a 1 mid block with Breaker 1. There's more defense for you. There's like. This card is insane. This card is absolutely crazy, and I know personally I played it out of 4 of in any deck that is allowed to play this card because of how many jobs that it has. But when I take and I do this, when I set out my jobs of my deck, I always have a 51% that I put these cards into. I see Evil Gaze as is Breaker Defense or Flow. Breaker is Disruption. Breaker is Disruption. Because it is forcing my opponent to make plays that they would not necessarily want to make. Good question. Or at least that's how I see it, right? And so I put these in these different categories, these 4 different categories, and I force them into one category that matters, right? So like Creepy Realization, Enhanced Commit, this deck gets +1 or -1 damage. When I take and I look at this card, I go, am I filling up my opponent's card pool with cards? If so, then do I need the +1 or +X or -X for each of their cards in their card pool on offense or defense? And so that will dictate where it goes. Exploding Pride. Your rival loses 1 health for each card in their momentum. Okay, rad. If this is an aggressive card, I'm gonna burn them to death with Exploding Pride, and it's off zone. Off zone cards are always super aggressive, but it also has Enhance. If this attack is blocked, discard your rival's momentum. That's a disruption card. My opponent has 14 momentum. Not only will I burn them for 14, but now if they interact with me, all that resource that they've built up, I'm just gonna flood it down the drain. And so there's multiple jobs. Multiple cards have multiple jobs, even if it's like a simple line of text like Creepy Realization for +1 or -1 damage. And so you have to put them in the categories that matter. We'll do this. So what now? All of this means absolutely nothing. It actually means nothing unless we have something to do with it, right? And so I've been alluding to what I do with these 4 categories, and I literally take my pile of cards, right, and I put them into 4 categories, and I look at how many cards I have in the aggressive camp, how many cards I have in the defensive camp, the flow, and the disruption, and then I will look at my deck, and I will see what I need to add, take away, right? Like I'm playing, for example, Ayama, right? Belly button laser, shoots you with these absolutely massive moves. He throws big, crazy, aggressive moves, right? Well, the thing about him is he also has a ton of moves and a ton of cards that disrupt my opponent by getting rid of the momentum. He's got the most momentum hate in the entire game. And so maybe I have a bunch of cards in his pile that are aggressive cards, but then I get to look at the disruptive pieces for them and slide them over to try and understand what I have to work with, right? Or maybe I will look and I have built my 50 card deck and I have actually 3 defensive cards, and I go, why do I keep losing? Well, that's because you don't know how to block. That's because you have no speed reduction. That's because your blocks are bad. So maybe take out some of your 100 aggressive cards and slide in some defense cards and playing a little bit more of a mid-range game. And so using this information to tailor what your initial deck looks like from like your very first attempt could be what makes or breaks your deck being good or bad, right? Doubling down on your strength, patching weaknesses in your strategy. I kind of already talked about this, but like there's sometimes you sit down and you look at your pile of cards and you go, well, I'm playing as Momo and my entire deck is nothing but flow. Well, I am not planning on putting any defense in my deck. I just want flow and aggression, and I'm just going to try and blow you out on turn 3. That's totally fine as long as you realize that that's what you want to do with it. And putting your cards out into these 4 jobs will help you get there to that next step of, I know what I want my deck to do, and I'm putting cards in my deck that do that. It's another way to look and see, maybe your deck doesn't have very much defense, but the defense that you put in is exceptionally good. I'm only playing 4 pieces of defense in my deck, but that 4 pieces of defense is a short circuit, right? Put a thing back to printed stats. That's great. That's a really good defense card. So maybe I don't need to sit down and be able to block everything, because I will face tank everything that matters and then force you to play 1 more. There's my big defense. You overextended. Now I get to backswing you. So here's my final thoughts. This is neat. This is how I look at decks. This is probably like the second thing that I do after I've like found a good pile of cards to like put together. But there are way more ways to think about your deck, and once again, this whole exercise is just to get you to think about your deck in an interesting, unique way. I do card jobs. You can also do packages, which I could do a video on if you guys are interested in that, of like what are like 2 or 3 card combos that exist that are like interesting and neat in order to play the game. Looking at your blocks. Hey, do you keep getting blown out by low attack zone Nomu? Well, that's because you only have 4 low blocks in your deck. So you have to take and look at not just the card jobs, but the blocks as well, or X-turn priority cards I have on here, which is like, hey, this card is really good on turn 1, and it's really bad on turn 7. Or vice versa. This card's really good on turn 7. This card's not very good on turn 1. If you've got a bunch of cards that are really good on turn 7, then you need to play way more defense and disruption so that you can get to turn 7. Right? And if you don't sit down and you don't look at your cards in these kind of different unique ways to think about the game, then you won't know how to organize or how to change your deck. You're just going to have a bunch of useless data. And so that's it. That's the entire idea behind this video. It is all about organizing your cards in a way that matters. And all of your cards can have specific jobs, whether it be attacks, foundations, actions, assets, and most importantly, your character. Your character is the most important card in your deck, because that's the card that you know you'll have for every single turn, starting at turn 1. And so looking at like All Might is a flow aggro character, and that's very hard to pull off and I'm going to say this, as a 5-hand size character. He's flow, he's aggro. Sometimes he just gets blown out because he can't block very well, because he doesn't have that defense to protect him. And so that's it. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments down below. Was this an interesting way to think about? Have you ever thought about the game this way? I know I've said this idea of aggro defense, flow disruption. That's how I look at every single one of my decks, and so I'm positive I've brought it up before on stream, and especially at IRL. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. And what are some other ways that you think about organizing your decks? Do you go by difficulty? Do you go by attack zone? Do you go by control checks? Currently in my hero, it's very 5-based, but let me know. I would love to have some input. So with that, thank you much for watching, you guys. I greatly appreciate it, and I wish you well.